broad area, so I'm gonna try and keep it nice and short. Quick reminder, 6 years in Bolivia, the task was very different than it is now. Creating a culinary school that would be a test restaurant where students could get a free education, which is not common in Bolivia. This piece of paper where it says that you can do something in South America is just extremely important. And coming from a Danish background, we're used to free education, free Medicare, you know, the whole Bernie Sanders dream. But then coming into a completely different context, it's also how we treat ingredients. It's when I was a student, I would call the provider in Copenhagen and order 100 cauliflowers of 9 centimeters in diameter for tomorrow morning. And now when I look back at it, I just imagine the guy with this little ruler out in the field. I'm like, what the hell? And you kind of change that perspective. So that was the task in Bolivia, creating this space where people could get an education through food, which is something you can always use. Maybe you don't wake up in the morning and dream about being a star chef, maybe you just dream about feeding your kids or buying a pair of shoes. And that was a little bit the task there. Then I came back to Copenhagen, and then when we think we don't have any issues, then you start looking into this whole system of how the restaurant industry works. And then you see beautiful stories and sustainable fish, hand-fished, brought to the restaurant almost, you know, on a bicycle ride away. And then the chef filleting that thing is working for 16 hours straight, having back problems. These are not piercings, these are little acupuncture needles, so I don't feel my back pain. It's insane. So we forget that part of the beautiful story. So we wanted to look into that. I swore I would never open a restaurant again, but now I am with my good partners. And we wanted to look into some of these things. So how can a restaurant be economically sustainable? How can we have the right products? How can we choose? Is it organic, or is it locally grown, or is it both, or is it neither? Or, you know, there's so many questions, and it's very difficult to figure out. So we also wanted to create this platform where we could be honest about these questions. I have no idea about this. Does anybody know? Can anybody help me? I don't want to use cling film. What should I use? So bringing all these questions to the table with some of the ideas also for students to get involved, so they don't have to come out in 15 years and ask the same questions, that they can have answers now. We wanted to create an environment where there's no gender gap. We have this symposium called Fire. You should check it out. It's very cool, female forward, as we like to say. But many times we hear young guys complaining about the tone in the kitchen as well. So it's not necessarily a male-female thing. Maybe it's just the ambience that you're in. How do you talk to your coworkers? Maybe you want to have an art discussion over mise en place instead of talking about last night's tremendous, drinking or whatever. So creating that environment, but also being able for somebody to come into the room and give their opinion as a student without being bullied or without, shut up, you don't know anything yet, come back in 10 years. So we're creating a mentorship program with the culinary school. Some of the same students that was in the Copenhagen Action Hub are leading the way. So we're going to we lose 40% of students in Copenhagen from the school finishes after 6 months of basic training, and the first month when they go out and work in a restaurant, we lose them. They're not prepared, they don't know what they're getting into, but also the restaurants are not prepared to take them on. You as a chef, you're busy, you're working, and then somebody comes and asks, and you're like, oh, figure it out, or why don't you know that? And you forget that maybe you've been standing there for 20 years and they've been standing there for 20 weeks. So we want to try and help them, smoothen that gap, so it's not such a traumatic experience as it seems now. I think the whole kind of Gordon Ramsay style television profile it's done so much bad for our whole industry. If that's what you need to expect when you come out somewhere, then of course nobody wants to be a cook anymore. So we took the mix of the culinary school that we want to get people to get an education, but then at the same time trying to incorporate immigrants, fugitives, a lot of people that in Denmark right now are stuck in the middle. They can't get into the labor market, and at the same time they really want to. They want to feel part of society, they want to be included. So we do job training, a small job training academy, where we take people in, teach the basic skills, everything from how to work in Denmark. Say good morning in the morning, we have a coffee, we have breakfast, we talk about what's going to happen in the day, all sort of basic stuff. And then we have a beautiful dishwasher from Somalia, just something, a guy from Syria, on cooking techniques, and none of them are chefs, but they all know how to cook. And then from there they can be trained to go into bigger chain restaurants that doesn't necessarily need professional chefs, but maybe they need somebody they can teach in basic kitchen techniques. So that's another thing where the kitchen can play a role in society. And when we have the soil done, then we need to take care of the people. So we try to be that soil for the people. Another thing, you were very busy, is the unions. The unions have been created at a time where we needed unions for factory workers, the 9-to-5ers. The whole system is just made so that it's taking care of some professions. And then we kind of slip in the middle because it's not really for the restaurant business. Sometimes it's good if you work in a hotel that maybe they take care of you. But when I get into this business, I understand that I need to work when people need to eat. So that's not a surprise. So when you want to follow the union rules as a restaurant, you can't afford to pay your workers. Because then after 6 it's double pay, and it's I don't know, and then the rules, and then you have to buy these machines because so if we start to work backwards and then say we have the unions on both sides, we have the one protecting my interest as an entrepreneur, and we have the ones supporting the employees. If we all sit down at the table and then find out a way that will work for both sides, instead of just having this war going on where pay them more and you're like, no, I can't afford it, and I'll close the restaurant. What needs to be done for this business to become fair and sustainable in a labor manner? We don't have the answer yet. Follow us and see if we figure it out. But finally, these two sides have agreed to sit down and do a new model of thinking restaurant, hours, overwork, etc. So we don't need the 16-hour work days. Yes, and then the last thing is, again, the collaboration with the municipalities, because they are stuck with a lot of people. They don't know how to train. Being immigrant ladies that's been in Denmark for 25 years, their Danish is a little rusty, but they feel completely useless sitting at home. They want to get out in the market, they want to meet people, and they cook beautiful food, but at home. Why not take that thing and make it, we have one lady hired, she's doing staff food. She doesn't have any training besides the fact that she's been cooking for a family of 11 for the last 35 years. And that's pretty good training. So we're trying to figure out models where we can invest in these people and we all gain, instead of it being this charity and like do-gooder, but then nobody really benefits. So yeah, just summing up, sustainability from a human aspect, that's what we're going to try. Restaurant Lola, please follow us. Opening any day now, between now and Christmas, in Copenhagen. And if anybody has any inputs or have worked with any models that works for you guys, then please let us know. Thank you.